On Patrol with the Suffolk County PBA is a dynamic podcast that brings together some of the most influential voices in the nation.
From union leaders and elected officials to law enforcement experts who explore the pressing issues shaping America.
Through thought-provoking conversations, we empower listeners to think critically about law enforcement, political policy, and the future of our society.
Available on Spotify, iHeartRadio, YouTube, and all Suffolk PBA social media platforms. Tune in to On Patrol with the Suffolk County PBA.
Welcome to another episode of On Patrol with the Suffolk County PBA. I'm CJ Hutter, the treasurer of the PBA.
I'm Tanner Brandemore, the sergeant at arms of the PBA.
And today joining us is Bridget Topping. Bridget is a Suffolk County Police Officer, and she's a member of the Behavioral Health Section over at headquarters. Thanks for joining us, Bridget.
Thank you for having me.
So just for everybody out there watching, what is the Behavioral Health Section? What does your unit do?
All right. So the Behavioral Health Section was created almost 4 years ago now. August 3rd will be my anniversary date with the Behavioral Health Section. We stem out of police reform, and it was a way of looking at how does the police department respond to behavioral calls for service. So individuals that are having a mental health crisis, behavioral crisis, substance use crisis, what are we doing? And is there a better way that we can handle those calls? So the idea behind this was to look at individuals that have a disproportionate interface with law enforcement, see what's fully going on with that individual, refer them to our behavioral health partners, which is Family Service League, and then have social workers at Family Service League outreach those individuals and see if they would like to get connected to behavioral health treatment, depending upon what their crisis is.
Right.
The idea behind that was, let's see if when an individual is connected to the appropriate behavioral health services, it will diminish police response to that individual. So we were all on patrol. We know the people that you go to over and over and over again, and you're looking for something better to happen for that person.
Right,
Something
right.
needs to change. What we're doing isn't working. Let's look at that individual holistically from a multifaceted approach and see if connecting them to the appropriate services will diminish police having to respond to them over and over again.
So I've been looking forward to this episode because we talk a lot about police officer mental health on the show. And it seems like almost every episode has morphed into at least a portion of it addressing police mental health.
Yeah.
And your unit addresses the public's mental health.
Yes.
So it's nice to be able to get that other perspective out here and let everybody else see what the police department's doing for the general public as well.
Yeah, I think it's huge. And we really make that clear that we stay in our lane as the behavioral health section. We focus on the community. You know, the Suffolk County Police Department is very fortunate that we have our peer team and they do a great job. We can work collaboratively with them if there is an officer in crisis and maybe they need something more. We do nothing but network, and we have a lot of resources available to us. If somebody has a specialized need, we have no problem assisting and helping, but we really do maintain and we stay in our lane, and we focus on the community. And it's important to note that we have so many individuals in the community that we have referred for help. I mean, in 4 years, we're over 3,000 individuals that we track and monitor. So, you know, we would need more. I think we would need a bigger team if we really wanted to take upon like an umbrella of officer wellness as well, you know. But
You continue to track them along the way, or how does that work?
Yeah, we do. So in the 4 years that we've been in existence, we've faced quite a few challenges where, we had our one computer system, then we switched to the niche computer system, then we had the great implosion of the government systems on September 8th, where everything kind of changed, and we really continued to forge forward. But we are referred, the individuals that are in crisis, we are referred through patrol officers, through different commands on the job, through members of government. And we also look at every mental health report that is completed and every substance use report, so overdose form that is completed.
Okay.
And we when we refer those individuals and we have communication with Family Service League regarding that individual, they go on a special computer program that we share with them that we continue to track and monitor. So if that person does continue to have police interaction, we can update them regarding that police interaction. And then Family Service League can have the communication to say, hey, so-and-so was transported again on this date, or so-and-so was arrested for this. And they will have the information to share with their treatment provider, which is really important regarding a behavioral plan for that person. So the treatment providers have all of the up-to-date information. So it's important to note that prior to the behavioral health section existing, that there was a lack of communication there. Mm-hmm. It's one of the biggest gaps that we have found is when we update treatment providers about an individual's transports, they may have no idea how often that person was getting transported, or they may have no idea how many times 911 was being called to that group home. And we have a variety of different programs that we utilize within the behavioral health section that supports patrol officers, so we track and monitor these individuals also through the 4 separate programs that we have.
So are there any automatic factors that would get somebody like you to proactively reach out to somebody and try to get them involved into this program? Is it like if somebody has a police incident, twice in a 12-month period, or is there any sort of time frame or occurrences, or is it every single time somebody has an incident, do you reach out and see if they need help, if it's a mental health incident?
So that's a great question. And when we started, like I said, we've had a lot of changes, and the initial metric for what we would consider a high utilizer was somebody that had a PMI form completed 3 times within 6 months. Mm-hmm. When September 8th happened and the crash happened, it gave us a chance to pause and look at the data and see, was that a solid metric? And what we found was that the individuals that fit that criteria were very often, more often than not, already connected to treatment. So it was great that we were having that communication with those treatment providers to update them. But then there was also a significant portion of the population that was in crisis, but because they didn't fit that metric, because their reports were being done differently, they weren't being connected to treatment. So we stopped using that metric, and now we base, we just have different ways that we will refer an individual, and a lot of them come right directly from patrol. Boots on the ground. Mm-hmm. I mean, we fall under patrol support systems. That is our command, and this is what we are here to do. We are here to support patrol. So we hear every single day from different members of patrol, different precincts, different commands, from internal affairs, crim intel, financial crimes, like people that are calling them. And we just will refer those individuals once we get a full background history on them and send that information to the social workers. So we don't have a solid set metric anymore. We kind of moved away from that pilot, and we went pilot and scale the program as a whole. And the goal now is to connect individuals when we see what they're going through. And if it appears that they aren't connected to treatment already, we really want to reach the people that aren't connected to treatment, and get them connected.
I'm sure they're getting better treatment because of that as well. You guys are doing you're getting a lot of information, a lot of data about each person individually, and I'm sure that you're helping them get the treatment that they actually need and not just treatment.
Right, and it's kind of for everybody. When we speak with the group homes and we speak with all the different entities, it's to know that the police department has their back and is watching out for them, because a lot of this, it comes into play. We see it with the group homes a lot, where individuals are transported for behavioral issues. And that's not really something that CPEP addresses. And that's one of the biggest challenges for CPEP is individuals that are brought there for issues that CPEP should not be addressing, but they have to because there's nowhere else. But we will look at and case conference certain individuals that we see are continuing to be transported and say, what's going on in that group home? Let's meet with the managers of that group home and see if what are the challenges going on there? What are the changes that can happen? And we will advocate for those workers as well. Like maybe it's the shifts, maybe it's training, maybe that individual needs a higher level of care, and we can advocate to have that individual moved to a better location. And that has happened. So, and a lot of that will stem from patrol calling and saying, hey, Bridge, I got this kid. We don't know what to do, whatever the situation may be. But we look at and everything going on with that person, share that information, and then the social workers handle the clinical behavioral side of it to go out. And we want to make sure we're giving them as much information as possible, because the idea is to send them out in a safe environment. Right. If that person that they're going to has a history of violence, there's more going on there, we can say that we do recommend a co-response where they will then call 911 and have police officers respond with them.
A lot of times they wait for the cops to get there before they even make contact with the individual, correct?
Yes, they will. It all depends. Every situation is separate. Some individuals they may assess prior to police getting there, and then that gives them the time to have a conversation with their supervisor, which they will then make a determination if that person should be transported for a further psychiatric evaluation. And then they will have that information ready to go when they call 911, and they can let the patrol officers responding know the form is signed. You are just coming to transport that person. Okay. Which is good, because what a lot of this is doing is we're trying to keep patrol sector operators in sector. We want them to remain in sector. So if social workers are calling police officers to be there, they're going to make that determination. They could make that determination together if the social worker already hasn't made that determination if the person should be transported a lot. Okay.
Now, you had mentioned sometimes people get transported to CPEP and maybe CPEP wasn't the right place for them. Yeah. For everybody out there watching who aren't police officers, CPEP is where police officers transport people in a mental health crisis when they're typically a danger to themselves or others. They're thinking homicidal thoughts or suicidal thoughts. So CPEP is the place we take them in that instance. If people are going to CPEP when maybe there's another place they should go, where should they be going instead? What would the alternative be?
So there's a lot of variables there. Well, one thing we do recommend, and we see officers doing it more frequently now, is DASH. Right. So DASH is at 90 Adams Avenue in Hauppauge. They are the Diagnostic Assessment Stabilization Hub for Family Service League. So it's kind of, we call it like an urgent care for mental health. They're open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It's voluntary. And we will urge officers to call ahead of time to make sure that that person is eligible to be brought to DASH.
What would the eligibility requirements be? Like, what would make somebody ineligible for DASH?
If they are too intoxicated, if they are too violent, too aggressive, and dependent upon the needs of the individual, they may have a history with that person already where they can then say, that person isn't going to do well here. They are better suited to be brought to CPEP.
And just to reemphasize, it has to be voluntary. If they're involuntary, it's because at certain points there's guidelines where we have to bring people to CPEP. Right. And that's if they're going to harm themselves and others. We can't just remove people from the streets, but they have to be voluntarily searching for help, seeking help, in order to be sent to DASH, correct?
Yes, exactly. It's really important to note that DASH is voluntary, and it's DASH has a rideshare service, so patrol doesn't have to transport that person to DASH. They can send for their rideshare service to come get the person, pick them up. They can get themselves to DASH. It doesn't have to be patrol bringing them. Whereas involuntary, you are going with a patrol officer to CPEP or one of the other mental health hospitals.
Now, DASH is still a relatively new tool in the county, right? DASH Dash became a thing for the police department when the police reform plan went into place, when your unit was created. So do you see that CPAP is being more properly utilized over the last 4 years since Dash has been this option?
Yes. So Dash was actually opened in 2019.
Okay.
It was the start of a lot of this, but it was open prior to the unit being
See, I didn't know that. The first time I had ever heard of it was after your unit was created.
So Dash opened in 2019 and then COVID happened.
Okay.
So Dash had a lot behind it, and then COVID just kind of shut a lot of those, institutions and stuff down. And the resurgence really got back up and running when the unit was created. So a lot of people associate us with Dash, but really Dash had been in existence prior to us. But yes, and that is one of the things that was the idea behind having Dash, and one of these stabilization centers was to divert the individuals that were being brought to CPEP for the wrong reasons, have them be brought to Dash, let Dash do that assessment prior, and then have them decide if that person is okay to go home or needs a further psychiatric evaluation.
Was that to stop CPAP from being overloaded with people that really didn't belong there?
That's 100% what it was. To all the hospital systems, that people were being brought in for the wrong reasons. And a lot of people don't realize that, but that is exactly what it was, a part of a diversionary program.
Mm-hmm. Now, so how big is your unit? How many police officers are assigned there full time? Who's reviewing the mental health incident reports? Like what goes on behind the scenes?
What goes on behind the scenes? So I have a Sergeant Chris Ngolia, who's wonderful. He's been here for about 2.5 years now. And then 3 other officers with me. So I got Officer Nick Robbins, who also hailed from the 7th Precinct.
Yeah, yep, Nick's a great guy.
Officer Gina Lauricella, who is from the 5th. And she has been a wonderful asset because she's also a registered nurse. And Officer Maggie Baroyer, who hails from the 6th. So we have a diverse background, and it's just important that we all have a passion for the field for one reason or another, whether it's work-related or personal. We all have a vested interest in seeing people get the help that they need. And really because we want to see the systems work efficiently.
Right.
Everything that we're doing is to be part of a solution, like not just talk about the problems. We want to be part of the solution.
Right. Let's think of another avenue, because obviously some of these people who have been involuntarily CPEP'd 10 times, it's not working. Or if they've been arrested 20 times because when they're going through this mental health crisis, they get violent, right? They commit an assault or a criminal mischief, right? So the arrests aren't necessarily working either. Mm-hmm. So there's another thing, another tool in the toolbox that we're trying to utilize to fix problems.
Yes. And that's what, everybody can say what the problems are, but we want to find out what the solution is. Right. And there's a lot of red tape. There's a lot of things like barriers and different challenges. For us in the unit, we do still have to fall within our HIPAA guidelines. So we can't be part of treatment plans. We can have case conferences where we bring up an individual's behaviors and what's going on as far as their interaction with law enforcement, but then it will be up to the social workers and treatment teams, and that we're not part of. Mm-hmm.
So you don't have like an idea of how the treatment's going, but you could just kind of tell based on the cases that you get, I would assume, how the person's responding to the treatment that they're getting. Right.
And we know if something's not working. I have that exact case going on right now. We have a female that is on the spectrum. She has a history of violence, and she also has been arrested. And I had an officer call me Friday night, and, Bridge, I know you know about this person, and I did know about this person. Okay, what's going on? And then he's like, I have like permanent bite marks from her. Like, this is what's happened. What's going on at home isn't good. What can we do? And it just, we look at ourselves as like the driving force behind making sure that the treatment providers, the teams are aware of the truth of what's really going on scene. So when I reached out to our partners and said, hey, she was transported twice again. We know that there were changes made. This isn't working. And they were, oh, well, no, the treatment provider said there's an improvement. There's not an improvement. She was just transported again, and my cop has bite marks. This is not, so it's not working. So let's sit down and we push it. We stay on top of them to not let any of this slide where we can and the best that we can. And again, it's not the treatment providers, it's the system as a whole.
Right. And that's exactly what we were talking about earlier, even before we were on air. You had mentioned that this unit really fills in a gap, right, where there was communication lapsing in the past between treatment and, the subject involved, where maybe the doctor providing the treatment thought what they were doing was working. That's because they didn't know about this transport to CPEP that occurred 2 weeks prior, for example.
Correct. And because it may not be CPEP, they may have been transported to a different hospital, and then that communication isn't shared.
Right.
But that's very important. That's all clinically relevant information that the big picture they need to know about. So you may have a provider that isn't aware of something that happened, and now we're able to share that information with them, and it's significant. It's often significant information.
It's definitely a different interaction when the police interact with somebody with mental health than it is for a doctor per se to interact with somebody with mental health, because usually we're getting there when they're at the worst part of their experience of whatever they're going through.
Yes.
So they can be a lot more violent, a lot more dangerous. It's a completely different interaction than when they go to the doctor. I'm sure they're prepared to go there. So they kind of anticipate that, and they're probably a lot more calm than they are usually. I don't know if you've seen differently or...
No, not at all. And because we speak with, we've had numerous sit-down discussions with CPEP. We have gone to CPEP and had these exact conversations. And they will tell you, it's not like the wool's being pulled over their eyes. They know anyone can hold it together for 15 minutes and get through that conversation. It's not a secret. My first week in the unit, I really thought I was going to bring the systems down from the inside. And I was like, you're letting people out. And they were like, yeah, we have to. And I was like, wait, you know about this? I was so taken aback. I was really knocked off my pedestal of what I thought I was going to come in and save the day. But it was also to hear it and be able to continue to have this communication and share, and we're forging forward. It's a slow moving process, and we need the community to understand that. We need officers to understand that. And for people in crisis, we need them to also hear you're not alone. It's an epidemic of mass proportions, and the systems are doing the best that they can with what they have to keep up.
Right. And it's great to hear that even CPEP realized that, there was a gap. They knew people were slipping through the cracks, right? I mean, they acknowledged it to you, because out on patrol, cops would get tired of dealing with the same person over and over again.
Yeah.
Right. So it's good that the reform plan, the creation of your unit, all these programs are starting to come together to kind of fill those gaps and try to come to a solution to a problem that's plagued our society forever.
It really has. And it's bringing to light. And what I really like about our unit and having the data that we're keeping and tracking is, it's definitely not one-sided, but like CPEP has said, they saw a significant increase when bail reform happened, because now those forensic patients are being transported to CPEP.
Right.
And
we talk about the revolving door of justice all the time. It becomes a CPEP revolving door as well.
It's just moved. It's just shifted. But yet also look at the staffing crisis in the jails. And so there's got to be an answer somewhere, but what we have in place right now isn't working. It's not working for anyone, and it's not safe for anyone.
You talk about resources. I'm sure the hospitals and the mental health treatment facilities, they don't have the resources or the staffing that they need to really take care of the amount of people that are going through mental health issues.
Right. We talk about our recruitment issues all the time. I wonder what it's like in other fields where, society relies on these jobs to keep us, moving in the positive direction, right? I mean, people aren't growing up wanting to be cops anymore. Are they still growing up wanting to be nurses, doctors,
And social workers,
right.
It's a really challenging field, all across the board. Salaries is a huge thing. Social workers really aren't paid very much. And then we're asking them to go out into the field, and they're not armed. They have their, their knowledge and their clipboard and a pen. And just like police officers on call with individuals that are psychiatrically compromised, anything can change in a minute.
Right.
It changes so quickly.
And a lot of these social workers, when they're going through their college and all the training they have to do to get these jobs, they're building up student loans, right? They're building up all this debt. It takes forever for them to get out of it. So it becomes a deterrent to get into that line of work to begin with.
Into that field. It's a dangerous field to get into. And, CPEP has to go on diversion. Cops will say, CPEP's always on diversion. And it's staffing. It could be that a staff member got seriously injured. There's a ton of reasons why CPEP goes on diversion. But across the board, we hear staffing is a major hindrance to getting people connected to services, especially in a timely manner. Right now for juveniles, we're seeing from ages 6 and up with suicidal ideations, and there could be upwards of a 6 to 8 week wait to get that child connected to treatment.
Wow, that's a long
crazy.
time. That's a long time.
At 6 years old, too?
That's 6 years old. It's really, really challenging, and it's really difficult. But we're seeing that the juvenile mental health crisis is really in an upswing right now. And there's just not enough treatment out there.
Wow.
And it's a challenge for the schools.
Yeah.
The schools are doing the best they can. It's a challenge for CPS. It's really the court systems. And then because you also have, let's not forget, raise the age. And you also are seeing such an increase in juvenile delinquency.
Right.
And juvenile crime going
all this relates. It all comes full circle.
It all comes full circle, and all comes right back around as to what we're doing isn't working.
Does your unit collaborate with school resource officers or the schools in general to help younger students get the help that they need?
So we do that by letting our school resource. We have a couple of school resource officers that have. I would love to talk about our telehealth program, what we do. But we do, and we have done presentations at schools. We really so our telehealth program was started right back when the unit kind of was created, maybe 8 to 9 months into the unit being in existence, because that was a model that stemmed from Harris County sheriffs in Texas. They had a telehealth program. And what we did was we gave 20 CIT trained officers, so crisis intervention team trained officers, which is a separate training that police officers can volunteer to go through, that's taught by our in-service staff. Mm-hmm. And mental health professionals come in, the Office of Mental Health and Hygiene, peers come in. So it's a week-long training that officers can volunteer to go through. And 20 of those officers that had taken the course were offered an opportunity to start a pilot and have a work phone, where when they would respond to a persons in crisis call, they had an opportunity to use that phone to connect with a social worker at Dash and let the social worker and the police officer and the person, totality of the circumstances, make the determination if that person needs to be transported to a hospital or not. It's been a great program. And we really, it grew. We were building the plane while flying it, we say. Dr. Jeff Steigman at Family Service League that we collaborate with has always said that about telehealth. It started out where we were transport or no transport. And then we realized there's a variety of dispositions that can happen. Maybe the person has to go to the hospital. Maybe the officer has heard enough information where they don't need the social worker to make that determination. The officer can now say, social worker, I have this, we're going to transport based on my observations. Maybe mobile crisis is going to come out. Maybe the person can just stay at home. So we have 9 different dispositions with our telehealth program. And we have had close to 2,000 uses of our telehealth program. And in that almost 2,000 uses, it has remained to stay pretty steady at an 80 to 82% no transport rate. Yeah, that's huge. That is a very, very successful program because that is meaning that when officers are using that phone to connect that individual to the appropriate behavioral immediately right there in where they are, they then get to stay on patrol They're not being taken out of sector to do a transport, have, anything else go on. They're able to just let that person stay there. And something that we really push, even if an officer isn't using a crisis intervention phone, they're using the client's phone or the subject's phone or maybe a family member's phone, that officer can go back into service and let that individual continue to have their conversation, whatever it may be going on, where maybe they're setting up treatment for a further day. Or maybe that person's going to come into dash at a later date. Right.
It definitely becomes more effective in keeping the police out there on the road. Because I remember when I was still out on the road, sometimes a CPEP transport could last the remainder of a tour.
Yes.
Right. I mean, especially if this person's acting up at the hospital, or if the hospital is just backed up, it could take you a couple of hours to even get checked in over there sometimes.
Yeah. But to bring it back to the juveniles and like what we said, some of the SROs, and we talk to the schools, because before we have no police officer wants to handcuff and transport a 6-year-old,
right,
an 8-year-old, a 10-year-old. We're seeing it. We're seeing it happen. We really push for the schools and individuals at the schools to use that telehealth program because maybe it's better suited for mobile crisis to respond to the school as opposed to that police officer transport needing to happen, to not traumatize that child into handcuffs and being taken to CPEP. And we have been asked, and we always advocate that it doesn't matter. That child's going to be handcuffed. It's for their safety, and it's for the safety of the officers and everyone involved. As
I'd like to reiterate that too, because a lot of people don't see that. They just see, oh, you're taking a kid out in handcuffs, you're taking this person out in handcuffs. And a lot of times it's an issue of safety.
Yes.
Right.
And it's important for the person that's in the handcuffs to be safe as well.
Yes. And, we've been asked about that by mental health professionals. Like, why do you have to do this? And it's like, well, if it's getting to that point where police are transporting this child, it's not because they're a child that's sitting there with their hands on their lap and they're calm and cognizant of what's going on around them. They're in a significant violent crisis. So it's for their safety. We reiterate that, not too frequently, but when it gets brought up, and more often than not, the individuals that we're speaking to are like, "No, I didn't think of it that way," So.
Right. And by putting the kid in a restraining device like handcuffs, it prevents them from being able to throw punches, or if they're leg shackled, throw kicks at us.
Hurt themselves.
Right. It prevents them from hurting us. It prevents them from hurting themselves. Because sometimes these people, they get violent in the back of the police car during the transport too. They start kicking at the windows of the car.
Happens all the time.
Yep.
Happens all the time. And it's and nobody, it's not good for the individual. And, yes, we don't want to traumatize anybody further by, having all of that happen. But we leave that then up to the mental health professionals, and I will put that back on them. If you don't want this to continue, then you guys need to step it up and work on a better behavioral health plan for that individual that's in crisis.
Right. Now, what other sort of programs does your unit have where there's maybe some sort of community outreach or something that makes the community more aware of what you're doing and, all the good work going on?
So, great question. Thank you very much for that. So we work on our telehealth program. We go out to, when any precinct asks us, we will go to the community meetings and discuss with the community what it is that we're doing, so they know what the behavioral health section does for members in the community. We don't take phone calls or referrals directly from the community. I don't think we're staffed to handle that. We have a lot as it is, just from internal referrals.
Right.
We work with a woman named Carol Trotter, who has been a leading just force behind a lot of the opioid crisis. She lost her son, Alex, years ago, and she was a big push in Nassau County. She got Narcan in all the county buildings. She's done a lot of different things legislatively. She was up at Fentanyl Day back, in February when we were all up there together. She's one of those moms.
Yep.
And Carol had reached out to me a couple of years ago. It was just like by luck through CRB. And she said, I want to do something for my son. I want to honor him. And she goes, his favorite pizza place was in Stony Brook. And, his birthday is coming up and I don't want it to be a recruitment event. I want people to have information about fentanyl. She said, I had never heard of fentanyl. I didn't know what this was. And so I reached out to Jason Byron of EMT and I said, what do you think about this? And he was so used to doing his wonderful presentation that's an hour long to a group of people and, 50 to 100 people, whatever it was. And he was like, I don't know what this is going to look like, but let's give it a shot. Mm-hmm. And that first event gave out like close to 70 doses of Narcan at the smallest pizza place in all of Suffolk County. And people would just come in and sit down and they got a free slice of pizza and a soda. And Jason really condensed his presentation. He talks about the Good Samaritan law. He shows CPR and he talks about what Narcan is and he gives out Narcan. And that program itself has evolved huge now, where we are, tonight is July 15th. We'll be at Alive by the Bay in Bayshore. The last couple of years, we've been at every Alive After 5, Alive by the Bay event. We go to different farmers markets, different fairs, festivals where we hand out Narcan. And we really talk to people about how unsafe all the, recreational like drugs are.
Right.
We see it and we talk about it. In our unit, we also, along with the mental health crisis and referring every person and people that are in behavioral health crisis, we also refer everybody that's overdosed. So we also are reading every single overdose report. Anytime an individual has overdosed where Narcan is used, we are referring that individual in the same manner to Family Service League, where they will outreach that individual and look to connect them to treatment. If that person doesn't want to be connected just yet, they still can get Narcan training and collaterals, so family can get the Narcan training as well. Carol really has just been she's with us for all of these events, and she has her Purple Rock program, which a lot of people have heard about in the news. So we talk about what we do at the street fairs and festivals. Jason hands out Narcan, and Carol focuses on the harm reduction model, where she hands out fentanyl test strips. And her Purple Rock program, she collects rocks from a beach by her house. She paints them purple. And then people can come up and write family member, friends' names, something on that rock. And she keeps all the rocks. They're brought to a park in Islip. And it just really shows the devastation and the loss of individuals that have passed away from, fentanyl overdose death, opioid death, whatever it has been. But, and she'll bring those rocks around to different,
That's incredible, because, on Long Island, that's like one of the biggest grounds for fentanyl and heroin and all that. And I feel like
we've had a huge crisis here.
The drugs and alcohol issue really is probably the driving force behind the mental health issue. I would imagine one of the driving forces behind it.
Yeah, co-occurring, that's what we call it. It's a huge driving force. And, we've seen the decriminalization of marijuana, and we've also seen an increase in fentanyl in marijuana. We read the reports, and it's, these kids that are smoking. I just thought I was smoking pot. I didn't know. And they're out. Right. And they're being Narcans, and that's how, and they're coming back, and we say that's how that there was something bad in your marijuana. We're seeing it. We're reading it in the reports.
Right. And, from time to time, I've heard criticisms in the past of all the free Narcan out there and the Narcan giveaways. Yeah. And people saying, well, what about EpiPens? And what about, the innocent kids that don't have the allergy medicine that they need? But like we always like to talk about root causes of issues here. Mm-hmm. And I feel like having those fentanyl awareness, programs and these Narcan giveaways, it creates that ability for people to learn about the risks of fentanyl. And hopefully it does deter more people from trying it, right, going forward, right? Because when you're aware of the risks involved, I think it does prevent some people from going that way with substance abuse.
And even the using, like an underlying issue, like people don't normally just use heroin. There's usually an underlying issue from mental health and mental health issue that could lead them to using
100%.
Yeah, it's coping skills. It's, it's choosing a poor coping skill. And it's could stem from childhood. We've learned about ACEs, right? Adverse, childhood experiences, traumas from childhood. It's all something that's building, and that is then learned behavior, where that coping mechanism is something that is okay to them, and without being taught all the dangers that are really behind that. And listen, we see it with alcohol, right? It's alcohol is romanticized in movies, on television shows. Get home, pour a nice glass of Sauvignon Blanc and relax, and it's.
I like the way you said that.
Sauvignon Blanc. And it's
very cultured.
It's a funny show, but it's just interesting what is okay by society and then what isn't, and what has negative outcomes, and what is perceived poorly and what isn't. One of the biggest things in working with Carol, and she lost her son, her only son,
right?
And it's led to opening a door where what we do is these programs with moms that have lost their children from the opioid epidemic, whether it started out as a surgery from a sports injury and a doctor prescribed it, or it just started out as recreational use. These are moms that were part of their children's lives. And we have gone to the grief groups. We have held hands. I've shed tears with them. And one of the biggest things that they have always asked, and a message they will try to convey, is please don't call our children junkies. Mm-hmm. There's such like a derogatory thought process when it comes to the heroin and the drugs and what we see and what it like all stems from. But they're humans. They're humans. And we try to continue to humanize the individuals that are struggling through a crisis. Everybody's suffering through something you know nothing about. Right.
And especially with, like you touched on it, the sports injuries leading to use, or like a car accident leading to the use of opioids. Opioid addiction and a battle with, the drug use has touched pretty much every family on Long Island now at this point.
It was a driving factor in me wanting to become a police officer. I had two very close family members that when I was a little kid, I remember watched growing up that were prescribed painkillers.
Right.
And it really, altered my perception on the medical field and how everything rolls. And I think that really stemmed when I look back as like, why do I do what I do? Why do I love what I do? And I have a passion for it so much, is because it's affected me my whole life.
Right.
So, this is not something that I'm doing to work Monday through Friday. This is something that I'm doing because I really want to see society get to a better place.
Right. Yeah. And that's very admirable, because you've taken your own life experience and turned it into, a passion to try to help people in your job here in policing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, like I said, pretty much everybody's been touched by this. I've had friends who have passed away from overdoses, who grew up, they were good kids. You mentioned athletic injuries before. That had led to some people that I knew get involved in opioids. Mm-hmm. Right. So it's something that really does touch and affect everybody here.
And we've had at some of these grief groups, moms come up to us and say, my son or daughter is a police officer, and this was their sibling. Like it really is. When people will share stories with us, and it's amazing to hear and to watch Carol get to share her grief. When people have that grief, like that real grief of a loss of a loved one, when you see it expressed between two people that understand each other, it's really touching. And we at every Alive by the Bay, Alive After 5, we end up in tears, because it's really
I personally believe that there should be a greater appreciation for the people that deal with mental health on a day-to-day basis, because I think it becomes very draining, I imagine. Dealing with it as a cop, like you do deal with it like day to day, but you're mostly like not every single day maybe. But the people that really spend your lives like diving into that issue, I think that it's very important. And even if you save one life, that's probably so rewarding, and you're helping turn around people's lives. Yeah,
for sure. And our overdose program, we have referred in the couple of years that we've been doing this, almost 2,500 people that have overdosed. So that's just a small number, because that's the individuals that we have had enough information to refer. If we don't have all the pedigree information on that person, we can't send that to anybody to outreach. So we really implore patrol, get us all the best information that you can so we can connect that person. We want to make sure we're not setting anybody up for failure,
Right.
But in that number, we have had, between us and, Family Service League, a 25% success rate as far as getting those people connected to treatment. And when I first heard that number, I was really bummed about it. I was like, I want that to be better, and Chief Waring, now retired, I remember when we sat down, we told him that number. He was like, that's great. Do you know how many lives that saved? And then in looking at it and just doing the research, it was one of the highest statistics across the United States for this program. Great. So like our programs, our relationship, this collaboration is just really successful because of the bond that we have with Family Service League. We have weekly huddles with their management teams, and it's not even the weekly huddles. It's the every single day conversations that we have with them. If we need officers to go out on a co-response, if we're going to go out on a co-response, one of the things our unit is doing now is we are going out with the social workers. When we have a knowledge and a history on that person and the social workers are going to respond to a person, patrol might see Gina and Nick going out with the social workers in our plainclothes uniform to de-escalate the situation, let that person in crisis know, you don't have patrol here. You have people that can take the time, slow this down, talk, and just, they like to see the different side of the police department, that we are here to listen to you. So.
Right. Now, and I was glad you brought up, the big fentanyl day we had up in Albany, where we went up with Ray Tierney and some of the families that have been affected by fentanyl. And this sounds like the kind of program where some of the funding that goes towards it could be funded through grants from the state or the federal government. Do you have any part in writing for grants or asking for grants or lobbying for grants? Or do you guys take any part in that, or do you know how that works?
So that's a very complicated system, and it can be very frustrating. We do have one grant that we've been working off of right now that's about to expire at the end of September. I think we're applying for an extension on it. There's a lot that goes into that.
Yes, there is.
Yeah.
Now, and I know that some of our local electeds sometimes get grant money from the state or the feds, right?
Yep.
That could go towards programs, especially when it's a program that utilizes multiple different sorts of resources, right? So it's the police department working with social workers, working with CPEP, which is part of the State University Hospital. So it would be nice to hear if some of the local electeds may get involved and maybe reach out and try to get some grant money towards these programs.
Yeah, for sure. And, we do, I'm the presenter of the unit. So I do my presentations, and now Assemblywoman Rebecca Cassay had come to one of my presentations in the 6th precinct a couple of years ago, and she's in her position now. And she said, I'm not going to forget you. I'm not going to forget the work that you're doing. And just recently she reached out and said, I have money for you.
That's great to hear. That's awesome.
It was, we were granted the money. We were given it. So now they just have to, on the back end, work the grant stuff out, all that stuff out. And then she's a genuine human being that cares about what it is that we're doing. And it had been almost 2 years since I'd heard from her, and that's amazing. I do sit on
2 years, and that's how long it took. Well, that's great to hear, because Rebecca is, new in the assembly, and we are very optimistic to have a good working relationship with her going forward. So it's good to hear that she heard your presentation and had the opportunity to help get you the tools you need to continue this mission.
Yeah, and I mean, we have, I've presented to the Legislature Public Safety Committee. I was actually on personally, it was an exciting opportunity. Myself and Dr. Jeff Steigman got to go up to the Public Safety Symposium in Albany back in September and present about our collaboration. And I know a lot of people were aware of that. And I sit on the opioid panel for the Suffolk County opioid panel, where that has legislators, multifaceted, different people, from OMH, OASIS, all the different fields. So we try to keep, I try to keep our name and what we're doing out there. I don't want anybody to forget about what it is that we're doing. Well, the legislators do come to the Live by the Bay, the Alive at 5. We see them. They're out there when we've been doing the Hauppauge Denison Farmers Market on Thursdays, and everybody comes out of the Denison building. People are aware of what we're doing, and it's a good thing. We everything that we're doing is helping.
Yeah, that's great to hear. And one of the things that I liked too, that I got to experience with your unit, was you had the workplace mental health day last year, where we had the big pickleball tournament at the park.
So that was, like I said, it was we make sure we stay in our lane. That it was a workplace event. It was for officer wellness, but we collaborated with the peer team.
Right.
So October 10th is National World Mental Health Day, and every year they have a theme. And like I said, our unit was in existence for 4 years, but the first 2 years were kind of really like a lot of growing pains, a lot of changes. And I said to my boss, we really got to do something. We have to get out there. And my sergeant is he's just obsessed with pickleball. He's got trophies and, medallions, and he plays, and he's going to be really mad at me. But we said it really is an up and coming sport, and it's a lot of fun. And we decided with the peer team, let's host a pickleball event. And we had officers come down. The PBA came out. We had all different treatment providers come out that could offer services to officers. Like, if you don't want to use so-and-so, this is who is available to you. It was just like a wellness fair for officers, all different. And it was our first one, and it was really successful.
It was a good way to, like you said, introduce our guys to the program too, because they might deal with it out on the road where it's like, all right, I'm dealing with the behavioral health section because this guy might go to DASH instead of CPAP or whatever the case. But now they're seeing that, when it comes to workplace mental health, they're recognizing that issue, and how we deal with our job. Sometimes it wears on our mental health. We talk about it often. Yeah. So it was nice to see that for our guys.
Yeah, and we wanted to do something that showed a good coping mechanism.
Right.
It was an athletic event. It was something fun, and there was no alcohol involved.
Right.
It was during the day. Like, there was a lot of stuff that we wanted to do different to show the positive that can come out of doing something that doesn't, surround itself with poor coping mechanisms.
Right. And pickleball is probably the fastest growing sport right now. I know a lot of our guys that play regularly, and we were just at a conference recently with a bunch of the other jobs from throughout the state. And there was an NYPD captain who spoke to me about trying to set up a pickleball tournament between the NYPD team and the Suffolk County team. I was like, well, I don't think we have a Suffolk County team yet, but I know we have a lot of guys who play that might be interested in doing something like that.
I've been bugging my boss to start one, to do a Suffolk County pickleball team. Because he's a coach. He would do it. I think he'd be great. My husband and I took lessons. We ended up taking lessons, and we absolutely love it. We actually, the behavioral health section, participated in a pickleball mental health event back in May. But we're going to be doing another October 10th. That is Mental Health Day. So that we're going to be doing that again.
Do you know what this year's theme is yet?
It wasn't that exact work-related theme, but I think we had such success with it. We're going to just we're going to stick with doing
that's
it
great.
I like the idea of pickleball. It's like a simple game, especially when you get older. You're not like
Right.
running around like basketball or football. It's like less risk of injury.
And it is still a
moving
good
around.
workout.
Yeah.
Oh,
So-
it's a, yeah.
So I've only played once, but I mean, it's a good workout. You make
I've never
lateral
played before,
movements,
so
fast, explosive lateral movements.
Oh,
Yeah.
you want to learn not to judge anyone, like play pickleball, because you may see some people coming up in their 60s and 70s and be like, oh, I hope I get to play them. And they're just going to whoop your butt. They're like, they are.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
huge among the senior citizen community.
Yeah. And they are good.
Yeah.
They are good.
Yeah. It's a great way to stay healthy too as you age.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, Bridget, I think we hit a lot of topics here today. I think we got a very good, general understanding of your unit and what you guys do. Is there anything you feel like we didn't touch on, something you wanted to get out there that, maybe there's a misconception or something the public should hear about your unit?
I just want everybody to know that, and I think for patrol out there, is that we're here to help you.
Mm-hmm.
We are here to help you help the people. So you want to do your job and you want to make sure that that person is getting the best help possible, reach out to us. I give everybody my work cell. They can find us on, MDC, email, and I do. We hear from patrol, we hear from different commands every single day. The collaboration works. We have the data to show that it works. It's going to take time. And we've even seen some of the, a lot of guys with like time on the job that are like, I don't want to try this. And then they try it and it works.
Right.
Give it time. I think that is probably one of the biggest things I'd like to get across is that, we do see an improvement in the diminished police response to the individuals that are in the crisis.
Yeah, that's great to hear.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what you want to hear.
Yeah.
So, Bridget, it was a pleasure talking to you. It's great to have you on. I'm glad we were able to give some light and attention to your unit and the good work you're doing out there for everybody in the public.
Yeah, thank you guys very
it.
much.
Yeah. Thanks, Bridget.
Thanks.
All right.